Why your toaster burns bread differently? Have you ever noticed how one side of your toast comes out perfectly golden brown, while the other side looks like it has survived a house fire? Or maybe you've seen how your toaster seems to have a mind of its own, sometimes leaving bread pale and limp, sometimes turning it into charcoal, and almost never delivering that flawless slice of golden crunch you imagine. It feels like a trivial, everyday annoyance, but behind this little mystery hides a surprisingly rich and fascinating history of invention, engineering flaws, ancient food rituals, quirky consumer culture, and the birth of modern household technology. The toaster, and the way it sometimes betrays your breakfast, isn't just about uneven heat. It's about how humans learned to control fire, how we industrialized electricity, how we designed for convenience over perfection, and how our most ordinary gadgets carry secrets that tell us more about our world than we think. So why does your toaster burn bread differently? To answer this question, we have to step far back in time, long before electricity, before stainless steel appliances sat on countertops, even before bread looked anything like the fluffy slices we drop into slots today. Thousands of years ago, when humans first discovered fire, bread wasn't baked in ovens the way we know it now. It was flat, crude, charred on hot stones or clay. Burning was inevitable. In fact, ancient people probably didn't even think of burning bread as a mistake. It was just how bread turned out when you slapped dough onto a heated surface. Uneven browning was as old as bread itself, and our ancestors accepted it as part of the flavor. But fast forward to the 19th and 20th centuries, when bread transformed, the Industrial Revolution didn't just mechanize factories, it mechanized food. Suddenly, bread wasn't kneaded by hand in village ovens, but mass-produced in large bakeries, baked into uniform loaves, sliced evenly, and shipped everywhere. This bread was standardized, convenient, and most importantly, it begged for a device that could toast it with the same precision. But here's the twist. Toasting bread evenly has always been a far trickier problem than people imagine. Fire doesn't like to behave, heat doesn't spread evenly, and even the most modern toasters struggle with this ancient riddle. The first attempts at toasting bread in a modern way weren't even toasters. People used racks or cages they placed over open flames or wood stoves. These contraptions roasted bread but required constant turning to avoid one side burning. They were clumsy, slow, and inconsistent. But people loved toasted bread enough to put up with it. Why? Because toasted bread wasn't just about taste, it was about hygiene. In the 19th century, food safety wasn't what it is now. Bread could go stale quickly, mold easily, or carry contamination. Toasting gave it a new life, crisping it, sanitizing it, making it safe and tasty again. Burnt spots were forgiven if the bread could be salvaged. Enter the electric toaster. This was where things got exciting and chaotic. Around the early 1900s, inventors began experimenting with how electricity could produce heat intense enough to toast bread without an open flame. But there was one huge problem: materials. Heating elements, the wires that glow red and make toasters work, had to survive high heat without melting or breaking. Most metals weren't strong enough. Early attempts used iron, platinum, or nickel wires, but they either oxidized too quickly, melted, or became unreliable. It wasn't until 1905 that a breakthrough came. Albert Marsh, a metallurgist from Chicago, created an alloy of nickel and chromium called nichrome. This was a game changer. Nichrome could withstand intense heat, distribute electricity efficiently, and glow beautifully without burning out quickly. It was this discovery that gave birth to the first electric toasters. But here's where the story takes its first quirky turn. Those early toasters were hilariously impractical by today's standards. The very first commercially successful toaster, called the Eclipse, released in 1909 by the American company GE, could only toast one side of the bread at a time. You had to manually flip the bread halfway through. Imagine your smart toaster of 2025 making you babysit it like a toddler. And yes, burning was common. One side would be crisp to perfection while the other would lag behind, leaving you with one golden face and one pale face. Sound familiar? That uneven heating, that imperfect burn, has haunted toasters since the very beginning. As the 20th century rolled on, designers tried to fix the problem. In the 1920s, Charles Strite, a Minnesota mechanic frustrated with burnt toast in restaurants, patented the first automatic pop-up toaster. This invention was revolutionary. You place bread inside, set a timer, and the toaster would spring the bread up when done. It was designed for consistency, but of course consistency was relative. Even with timers, heat still didn't distribute evenly inside the chamber. Streight's invention fixed the issue of people forgetting their bread until it turned black, but it didn't completely solve why toast was never perfectly uniform. This is where we uncover the real culprit behind why your toaster burns bread differently. It's not just one flaw, it's a conspiracy of design choices. It's physics, and even your bread itself conspiring against you. Let's start with the physics. Heat inside a toaster, docent, spread evenly because of air currents and the distance between the bread and the heating elements. The wires at the sides of the slots are hotter at some points than others. That's why you sometimes see little zebra stripes on your toast where the bread was closer to a glowing coil. Add to that the fact that the outer sides of the bread face open air, while the inner sides face another slice of bread or a metal wall. This means one side will often cook faster or slower than the other, leading to the eternal breakfast frustration of mismatched slices. Now throw bread itself into the mix. Not all bread is created equal. Some loaves are denser, some moister, some contain sugar, butter, or oils that caramelize differently under heat. That explains why your multigrain toast always seems to burn faster than your white bread. Sugars in the dough brown quickly, while moisture slows down the process. The toaster isn't misbehaving. It's reacting to the chemistry of your food. Every slice is a new battlefield for heat and chemistry. But let's not forget the human factor. Toasters are consumer products, and manufacturers rarely design them for perfect toasting. Instead, they design them to be cheap, fast, and small enough to fit on a kitchen counter. Perfectly even browning would require precision engineering. Symmetrical heating elements, insulation to prevent heat loss, sensors that monitor each slice in real time. Such machines do exist in commercial kitchens, but they're huge and expensive. The average household toaster is a compromise of balance between convenience and cost. The result? Your breakfast becomes an experiment in probability. This brings us to another fascinating chapter: toaster psychology. Think about how people actually use toasters. Some like their bread golden, some nearly raw, and others like it dark brown, bordering on incineration. That little dial on your toaster isn't really a temperature setting, it's a timer, and it can't account for all those personal variations. So when someone says, "This toaster always burns my bread," what they really mean is, "This toaster doesn't match my exact tolerance for burnt flavor." The toaster is less a machine of precision and more a mirror reflecting human quirks. It gives us imperfect toast and we project frustration onto it, forgetting that perfection in toasting is as elusive as perfection in life. But here's the viral twist that will blow your mind. The unevenness of toasters, the way they sometimes betray us, is part of what made them iconic in culture. If toast had always come out perfect, would we talk about it so much? Would comedians joke about burnt breakfast? Would movies use blackened toast as shorthand for stress, distraction, or domestic chaos? The imperfect toaster became a symbol of everyday struggle, a reminder that technology doesn't always make life easier, it makes it human. Even today, in the era of smart appliances, toasters remain stubbornly flawed. Yes, there are smart toasters that promise infrared sensors, app controls, or perfectly even browning. But when you check reviews, you'll find people still complaining about one side being darker, or artisanal bread not fitting in the slots. The problem isn't fully solved because bread itself isn't uniform, and heat will always play favorites. The toaster's flaws aren't bugs, they're features. It's baked into its DNA. So the next time you look at a slice of toast and wonder why one side is pale while the other is nearly black, remember that you're witnessing the legacy of thousands of years of bread making, the limitations of physics, the compromises of design, and the quirks of human taste. That uneven burn is history speaking through your breakfast. It's a small imperfection that connects you to ancient flatbreads charred on stone. Two inventors tinkering with nichrome wire, to the millions of rushed mornings where people laughed, sighed, or cursed at their toaster before heading out the door. And maybe that's why your toaster burns bread differently. Because life, like toast, is rarely perfect. It's uneven, unpredictable, and sometimes a little burnt around the edges, but always worth savoring.